Hello and welcome back to the Rufus Project presents Join Our Cult!
Yay!
Yay! So as you can see, it's myself, Trevor, and my awesome friend, cohort, and king of cult cinema in Brisbane,
Kristian Fletcher. Thank you, Trevor. In our very squarish selves, but we're here.
Yeah, we're here. We're doing the thing, and thanks for your patience. I hope you enjoyed our first Join Our Cult. We're going to give it another try. I'm going to try a few things a little bit differently. We'll see how that works. And as you can see, we're here to discuss the great, the one and only, the Blues Brothers from 1980.
Yes. Which I was thinking as we were speaking about doing this, I'm like, oh wow, Trevor, it's the 40th anniversary, so it seems like a great time to be chatting about the film.
That is very true. That had not even crossed my mind. So
it hit mine just before, so I thought, it's probably very appropriate. But I have had a lot of people say, now that we're into the 80s, or into the 40 years of the 80s, people said, oh, please stop reminding us. It just makes us feel really old.
Just makes me want to watch more stuff from the 80s.
Oh, yeah, the good stuff.
Indeed, and there is so much of that good stuff. But what we'll do is, hopefully this will work a bit better than last time. We're going to see how we go. So you're either going to get the trailer with Kristian and I participating with it, I guess, or get the trailer just by itself, depending on how this records. So as you can tell, this is all off the cuff. So I hope this goes well. Allow me to just quickly tweak a setting here. And then we will play the trailer. Are we ready?
Ooh.
Here we go. Ooh, rated R.
So far, so good.
I'm going to play it. Here we go. I'm excited.
You'd better get bright, pal. We got a show to do. Then we got to figure out some way to collect that gate money. Get it to the Cook County Assessor's office as soon as they open in the morning.
Joliet, Jake, and Elwood Blues.
Good thing is that kind of sums up the plot in that very first line.
Oh, Peter gun thing.
2 men with a mission, and only 11 days.
Hear that trailer voice.
I love it. That's too much away to this trailer. It gives you a little bit of a hint about the PC.
You've redeemed yourselves.
Our Lady of Blessed Acceleration, don't fail me now.
If you had no idea what this movie was about, you'd be so confused
There would have been people going, it's brown, it's going to be in
For me and the Lord, we got an understanding. We're on a mission from God.
Yes, they love their chases and explosions and car wreckage in general. This movie.
Walking around every day playing games and making scores.
Aretha Franklin. I've yet to find a cafe where they actually dance on the tables, but one day.
We'll have to sell it to ourselves.
This version always reminds me of you, Trevor. I thought you'd appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
It means celibate.
Oh, okay. Now, everyone knows this song.
Hit it.
Yes.
My true love will be waiting. If my estimations are correct, we should be very close to the Honorable Richard J. Daley Plaza. That's where they got that Picasso. Yep.
Just insane.
At least I don't get too much. Oh, the big concert scene ending.
Oh, yes.
Makes me want an orange
You see two guys come in here, black suits, black hats, one carrying a briefcase?
Yeah, I just sent him down there.
Thank you.
John Belushi,
How much for your wife?
Dan Aykroyd,
After the gig, maybe we could, hang out together.
James Brown,
I heard the sound in my car.
Cab Calloway,
What a cast list already.
Indeed.
Ray Charles,
You know depreciation, man.
Carrie Fisher,
Ah, Carrie.
I must now kill you and your brother.
Elvis Franklin,
You're living with me now, and you're not gonna go sliding around with your old white woman friends.
Henry Gibson,
May the police get to him before we do.
and the
I
Blues
hate Illinois Nazis.
Fucking Illinois Nazis.
The Blues Brothers.
Are you the police?
No, ma'am. We're musicians.
Oh yes. All the yes. Read the book.
Oh, and like, oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, I love it. It's usually somebody who's actually not even got the screenplay and they've just watched the movie and added all these extra bits in. So it would be funny to see the book version. But wow, so Trevor, look, you're more of a Blues Brothers nut than I am. Did you catch it when it first came out, or do you remember how big of was it a big deal when it came out? I'd like some bit more of a
Sure.
idea about that, if you remember.
What I'll do is I'll just get the pictures changing, so it's not just the poster here. I should change any minute now. Yeah, look, I didn't see it when it came out back in 1980. I probably wasn't allowed to go to, well, I guess it would have been an M-rated movie in Australia.
Yeah.
But I really, I suppose, first found out about it when we had a videotape of it recorded off TV. And it was at a time when Australian TV would allow, pretty much no swearing at all. So, and all these sections were snipped. So instead of having Charles Napier go, you're going to look pretty funny eating corn on the cob with no fucking teeth, it was no fucking, you're going to look funny eating corn on the cob with no teeth. So when I finally got to watch the full movie, I'm thinking, I've missed all this stuff. This is even better than what I've been watching all these years.
And the thing is, there seems to be so many versions of Blues Brothers too. I never quite know which one I've seen or which one I haven't seen, etc. But I think nowadays it seems to be that, especially when we've done screenings of it, or when you get it on the Blu-ray, it's usually the extended version, which I think is about 2 hours 20. But there's so many scenes where I think a lot of people have said these were unknown for quite a long time, and in many ways, as somebody myself who prefers shorter movies, I would probably more go the theatrical cut, but I can appreciate the longer version. I'm probably more familiar with it.
Well, I mean, look, the long version is great. It's got some fantastic scenes that I think should have been kept in there, but I'm thinking, again, with that extended cut, there's probably still quite a bit in there that they probably really didn't need to put back in the grand scheme of things. I do like the theatrical cut. I think that is my preferred version, but then some of the extended musical scenes, more of the Peter Gunn theme, more of them just coming into town before they reach where Elwood's staying is just so atmospheric and really sort of just ties in. You know, he's got like a disguised utility cabinet which he uses as a garage, so he doesn't have to pay for parking in the city, and just all these little extras that just add a bit. But then again, there's other bits where it's just like, this was already a long movie. This doesn't really need to be here.
Yeah. And I often notice that because we, for those who don't know, Trevor and I have done, not just us personally, even though I'm sure the two of us could act it out ourselves, but we have done shadow casts or floor shows for the Blues Brothers, and it's definitely a very different experience to, say, doing Rocky Horror. Like, Blues Brothers is one of those things where, and I've often said this, I think if you even took away the musical numbers, it would still stand alone as a good comedy movie with a great action sequence at the end. And, because I think the musical numbers I think even we noticed, when we did the floor show was, there'd be about half an hour, 40 minutes between each song, but it does also make you realise once they added those songs in and I'm not saying it wasn't going to be a musical, but once you put all that together, it's just the way it's meant to be. It just works so well. But it's definitely, I can see why it hasn't picked up as probably a midnight or cult classic. It's still a cult movie, but a sort of interactive movie as such, like Rocky Horror would be. But I know it did have quite a big following down in Victoria, in Australia as well. And I think the cast of the Blues Brothers down there were even asked to be in the sequel, Blues Brothers 2000, but we don't need to speak about that too much. Hear our podcast about that.
I haven't got that one up yet on the Rufus Project's flashback feed, but I will get there eventually.
But I did a bit of research. I actually should have watched this before I chatted to you, Trevor. But the Blues Brothers made their premiere on SNL or Saturday Night Live in 1978. I'd be interested to see. I think one of they did Soul Man and another song I wasn't familiar with. So it's interesting how from them doing a skit from the very first appearance, 2 years later they had this 2.5 hour movie that was given. It ended up making. I don't have the facts in front of me, but it did make 4 times its budget. I think it was made for. Was it 40 million and made 120 or something like that? So it did quite well. But to have put that much money into the first Saturday Night Live movie, we've seen so many hits and misses over the years since. But to have put that much money into it was a good gamble. But from what I also read, they just the Blues Brothers band, or the group that ended up being the band and the lead singers in the movie had a big hit with Soul Man, so that already kind of made their mark. And so so I think it was a big gamble, and it definitely paid off because hey, look at the movie we've got.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. That's like Dan Aykroyd was always a massive blues fan, and he's the one who introduced John Belushi to the blues and took him to the clubs. And even before the Blues Brothers, earlier in 1978, that appeared in doing a blues act. I can't remember the name of the band, but it was such and such in the Bees, and they did the song called King Bee, and they were all dressed in bee suits. And then they came back.
I've seen photos of that, yeah.
But then they came back a bit later with the Blues Brothers, which ended up being a huge hit with the audience and the actual members of Saturday Night Live. So that's why they kept coming back. Again, before the movie came out, they did a big tour supporting Steve Martin, where they regularly blew the crowd away with the blues act. And they weren't just using the Saturday Night Live band, like Dan Aykroyd went out. He handpicked a number of the band members who, of course, ended up appearing in the movie because they were very solid blues performers with quite a bit of experience in the local blues scene. So it's not just, hey, we'll play this comical pair of blood brothers who are doing band. It's like it actually was almost like a passion project for Dan Aykroyd, and to see that in 2 short years it came to a movie. I believe the original screenplay was even longer again, if you worked it out, because they used to refer to the original script as The Tome.
Good. The fact that they could give so much history or backstory to these characters goes to show that they knew their stuff before going in. They were quite, they knew these characters very intimately, and they'd had that time to develop it. And look, you're talking about, getting such a great band together, but and being able to convince names like Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles and Cab Calloway to come back and perform in these, and then subsequently giving them a new career. Without Blues Brothers, we wouldn't have had Aretha having an 80s career for sure. As we saw, with the pop charts later on, a couple of years later. So, I think that was such a clever way to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if these artists, they bloody loved it as well. They weren't just doing it to be in this movie or to make some money. I think they would have really supported that passion that Dan Aykroyd and the rest of the crew had for this project.
And it certainly gave Ray Charles a hit. I mean, Shake a Tail Feather, that's still played at dances and all sorts of things, even now, but it was such a massive hit at the time. And you say, they were excited to be there. The thing is, the likes of like Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin and a few of the other ones. It wasn't just a matter of them being keen to do it. John Landis and, of course, Dan Aykroyd had to fight for a lot of these guys to be in there. Universal wanted to go with more recent, more popular artists. And so they really had to stick to their guns to get some of these, absolutely awesome performers in this movie.
And because a lot of them wouldn't have performed for a while, as much as we say it would have been hard to get them, I think they would have been quite happy for the resurgence, let's just say. And I think from what I see or from what I've read, Blues Brothers was very instrumental in all of these acts having a big resurgence in the 80s. And I think it's just what we see in the movie and what I've seen from Blues Brothers live tribute shows and things, just the energy and the fun that it brings, that real sense of community. Just what you see in that scene with James Brown with everyone all doing backflips in the church, that's the kind of energy and excitement that this music and the music in this movie kind of makes you want to do.
Well, look, I mean, going back to the fact that we've done the floor shows of it, where we mainly focus on doing the musical acts, and I got to tell you, just a single musical act, just performing it with that level of energy, lip syncing it. I think just one song number put me more out of breath than the entirety of doing a Rocky show.
Oh, especially that last big concert scene too, when you're literally doing. I think Elwood does the thing where he puts his legs up and down, constantly. But then you've got Jake, doing cartwheels and all sorts of things. And but yeah, there's just such an energy. Imagine being the audience or the extras in that scene that they film in the ballroom at the end. I just think that would have been electric.
Oh, and then some. I guess there's places I would like to be in a movie. But then again, being on the movie set, it would be such a different matter. But they were still seasoned performers by this point. They've been touring pretty constantly for 2 years. So I dare say that quite a bit of it was they just played live for these people, and then a few reshoots, a few edits, a few other bits cut in, and you've got a phenomenal, almost like a concert movie. Particularly, towards that end in that big Palace Hotel ballroom. It's just, love it. And definitely, this sort of thing is great to either dance around to or sit back with an orange whip.
Yeah. Oh, John Candy.
Yeah.
I love that they even have a tribute for him, I think, at the start of the sequel, which we will not speak about. We don't need to speak about that at the moment. But Blues Brothers as a movie, like, I as I said, was quite successful, but I believe in Australia, I think it would have been VHS that it would have taken off a lot more. It's one of those movies, excuse me, I'm getting excited here. It was one of those movies that, to be honest, I never saw as a kid. I saw it probably a lot more recent, and I say recently, more when I was a teenager, late teens. So I missed it, but I can imagine it being quite a VHS movie, especially in Australia, and with those acts that are involved with it, like enough. You read that on the video case, and that's enough to make you want to watch it.
I want to watch it now, of course.
Yeah, no, exactly. It always happens when we talk about these things.
No.
So,
whether I watch it on my... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you go.
Yeah. No, whether I watch it on my VHS copy, my DVD copy, my Blu-ray copy, or my my digital streaming copy, that's a matter of having to decide.
Yeah. Well, I actually feel like... Yeah, I feel like going and watching the theatrical cut now, so I just to sort of compare them a little bit. Sorry, Trevor.
Then of course I could always just listen to my CD or my vinyl soundtrack. That's another option. Or my streaming. Yeah, so I've got a digital too.
You're pretty covered. And hey, at least you can say whenever we do a floor show in Brisbane, it has been a while. We will have to bring it back when things get a bit more positive in the world. I definitely think, especially with it being the 40th anniversary, we'll see what we can do this year. But it's one of those ones that holds up quite well, no matter what version you're watching. And even if you are just listening to the soundtrack, it's there's many great things. And I believe they released a few more albums and stuff. There's a lot of songs that they even covered, like I think Rubber Biscuit and a few other songs that aren't included in the Blues Brothers. So they did continue to have a career, and this movie would have been perfect for what they wanted to do as a dare I say it, as a promotional step. But it's gone on to also be a cult classic as well, and not be just a money maker like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band or something like that. I'm glad it hasn't fallen into that kind of league.
Oh, the ghost of podcast past. But yeah, I mean, look, they had released an album before the movie came out. So there was Briefcase Full of Blues, which came out before the movie, followed, of course, by the soundtrack, and then Dancing with the Blues Brothers, which I know I used to have a copy of. I hope it's still buried in my collection somewhere. And they had Robert Biscuit and a number of other covers.
Yeah, it seemed like, it's interesting how I don't like talking about the sequel. It's interesting that they waited such a long time. And I think a lot of that sort of lost the spirit of the fact that you didn't have John Belushi in it. And there's just a lot of other elements that just came together, I think, for that first movie that they just weren't able to replicate. And, and as we've seen, a lot of other Saturday Night Live skits or characters have been adapted into movies, but I think this is probably the one that's done the best. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted by the frames down the bottom. I'm really enjoying getting a bit of a recap about all these scenes. Oh gosh, the
Bob's Country Bunker. So, what type of music do you know?
Quotable.
Yeah, what type of music do you normally have here? Oh, we have both kinds, country and western.
Well, I've seen subsequent movies where they have the whole chicken wire or fencing or whatever in front of them, and you just can't not think of Blues Brothers.
Absolutely. Oh, so gold, so much gold. I just don't go. It's off to the side here for me, the screen, so I've got to try not to just keep going. Oh dear. Oh,
well, definitely. We sound like we've encouraged people to join our cult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you already have talked to me about, where I found the movie and how I was introduced to the movie. And you said, you really only found out about it as an adult. So what was your story with discovering the Blues Brothers, Kristian?
Yeah, well, it was one of those movies I always knew about. It was always one of those movies that people who had Grease and things like that, it was always part of their video collection. So I never quite got a chance to see it when I was a kid, and my parents weren't exactly the sort of people to push me in that direction. So I do remember it probably would have been about 2000. Oh God, it sounded like such a young fan. But 20 years ago. And hey, the movie was only 20 years old, but I do remember seeing the VHS, and admittedly, I don't know what cut of the movie I did end up seeing, but thinking, oh, this is a little long. It could have had a little bit of a trim, but I've since seen it, obviously, and realised, the big part of it is the musical numbers, and the fact too that it's not a musical where they necessarily break out in song, but they do in the case of, say, Aretha Franklin, but it's very much, I don't know, a celebration of that style of music. And I don't think any other sort of musical, if we want to put it in that category, or music film, really delves into that kind of style of music. So I think I really appreciated that too. Something very different. You don't see other movies like the Blues Brothers, and that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, and I know I think we have focused mainly on the music so far and the whole band situation, but even outside the music, just the things they throw in there, like in that trailer, you got Catherine O'Hara as the nun, which is one of the most memorable scenes of the movie, where they go back to the orphanage and she's just whipping them with a ruler because they keep swearing in her presence and tell them, get out! And we can't talk about the Blues Brothers without talking about the amazing performance of Carrie Fisher. She barely turns up in there, but when she does, it's just, literally explosive.
Oh, and look, not knowing enough about her filmography in terms of post-Star Wars, where it all sort of fits in, but in 1980, she probably was only really doing those Star Wars films. So for her to have made a cameo in this was just so, I think, unexpected. And I almost feel it's interesting, even not just with her, but with Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles. And it's funny, you kind of want to say cameos, but they almost don't deserve to be cameos. It's such an ensemble movie.
Indeed. And in fact, if you look at the screenshots, we just saw that Twiggy was on her way in.
I was going to say that looks like the one at the service station.
Yep.
Now we've got Piggy. We had Twiggy, but again, there's a few parts that have flashed up where I'm like, oh yeah, this is from the extended version, or a few scenes where you go, huh? So yeah, I think I've seen so many different versions over the years. I never quite know what I'm watching.
Yeah, well, to start with a already seriously cut down version of the cut theatrical version, I guess the movie has grown with me. As I've gotten older, the movie's gotten longer and more involved.
And of course, as soon as Blu-ray came out, they're like, we have to have the most complete version. I think there is the theatrical on there. To be honest, I think it's only 20 minutes difference anyway. It's not like a huge difference. But I know whenever we screen it, I'd like to do the most complete version, because most of the time I'm thinking I don't want to put the theatrical on. We might end up having a cut production number that we've learnt the wrong version for. God, that makes it hard to learn things.
It does. What are we doing? Are we doing the long version of the song? Does the old landmark keep going for an extra minute in this version?
Oh, that's right. Are they going to keep flipping in the air? My mum actually saw it for the first time we did a floor show, and she said the James Brown seed, she just lost it. So I said, oh, we won you over straight away.
Yeah. Oh, dearie me. So, yeah, well, look, I don't know if there's really much more we can say about this one. It's just all come out. We, as you can probably realise, we highly recommend that. If you're going to join our cult and enjoy a cult movie, the Blues Brothers is certainly one that we heartily recommend.
Definitely. I think there's so much for everybody, even if you're not into necessarily R&B music or rhythm and blues, I should say. R&B's got a different connotation nowadays.
It does,
but
yes.
If you're interested in that sort of style, aren't into that style of music, there's still also a fantastic comedy movie underneath. There's also probably one of the greatest chase scenes in terms of car chase scenes and car damaging that you've ever seen in a film. So I definitely recommend for the last, it even probably goes for over 20 minutes at the end. So that's probably where a lot of our runtime comes from. So there's something for everybody in this, as I said, a comedy, musical numbers, some great action and car scenes, and some fantastic cameos by some people you would not expect to be in a movie.
Indeed, and this is a movie that had the most number of cars crashed until its sequel came out, where I think they just... I'm watching the sequel, there was a section of that where they were just blatantly just going, here is us crashing more cars than we did in the original. But actually, it would also be remiss of me to say, or not to mention the fact that this movie has my second favourite movie car in existence. I love the Bluesmobiles so much. They actually had 40 of them. They had 40 Bluesmobiles for the making of the film, including the very special one that was worked on for a number of months in the lead up to filming, just so they could make it fall apart at the end.
Well, that means that there should be 39 in existence. Trevor, they won't notice if we steal one just for you, surely.
Yeah, just one of them, that's fine. It doesn't even have to work. I'll just put it somewhere I can just go, oh, it's so pretty.
I might just be able to get you a door or something, but as long as we'll work something out, they've got to be out there for us to get.
I've got my little miniature one, though. That's okay.
Yeah.
That'll do me for now.
That'll have to do in the meantime. But definitely, no, I think this film's great. And as somebody who, as I said, was more of a recent discoverer of it, I definitely think I'd recommend sussing it out. And if you find the first time it's probably a bit too much to take in or too long, or I don't know, you don't know where to look, like with most of these cult films or films that end up having this iconic status, watch it a couple more times and you'll realise how much it grows on you.
It does indeed. So definitely I think you should totally join our cult. Check out the Blues Brothers, and then if it is your first time, let us know what you think. We will, of course, be back with more stuff for you wonderful patrons out there. Thank you so much for supporting the Rufus Project Presents. We will be bringing more podcasts to you, which you will be getting first. We all know it's crazy times right now, right? So we're getting there, and we're going to make sure that you guys keep getting content. Of course, recommend the Rufus Project Presents Patreon to your friends. We're going to get some more hype or shite up there. More Join Our Cult. I mean, I did the poll for Join Our Cult between Blues Brothers and Flash Gordon. That was a tie, which kind of means we have to do Flash Gordon next.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. A little spoiler for what's coming up. And yeah, we'll certainly keep things rolling. Now, Kristian, I know that at the moment you're hosting online video parties, which are an absolute blast.
Oh, there's so much fun. So make sure you head to christianfletcher.com where you can hit up my actual upcoming events, but also hit up the Facebook page, which is Kristian Fletcher Events, for my online events. Because, yeah, Trevor, we don't have much in the way of cinemas and nightclubs at the moment, so Kristian has to go online. And yeah, really enjoying doing the 70s and 80s video parties and a few other cult movie and trash movie nights. So we're still going ahead in some way. So if you wish to get more information, head to christianfletcher.com, and yeah, I'll let information out as soon as I know, and hopefully we can do a Rocky Horror this year in September. So fingers crossed.
Definitely fingers crossed. I am missing the stage show, missing the performing so much.
Definitely.
Very much. And of course, look, also head to rufusproject.com for all the links to all the podcasts, including the Rufus Project Flashback, where I'm pulling all the old podcasts with redeeming features out and putting them back online so that you can check out what we thought of all these terrible, terrible movies. I'm being reminded of some that I had forgotten about, Kristian.
Oh, I know.
And it hurts a bit, but it's still great.
It hurts my brain when I remember the movies, but as we say, Trevor, thankfully the chats aren't a nightmare. So
yeah, absolutely, and yeah, so we will be bringing more redeeming features content to you as soon as feasible. Really, I guess that's all I can say. Yeah, so again, let us know what you think of the content we're giving you here on Rufus Projects Presents, and we shall return with a thing of some description in the very near future. So, Kristian, thank you very much for joining me on the journey of discussing the cult movie Blues Brothers. Oh, look, back to the original poster.
Yeah, I know. Well, we timed that really well, didn't we? No, absolute pleasure, Trevor. And I think, yeah, I definitely want to go and watch this movie again now, actually.
I haven't watched it for a while now. I definitely need to rewatch it. I think I need to introduce it to my kids. They can handle a bit of swearing now, so I think
it's time.
It's
time is
right.
Time.
Yeah.
Watch it over some orange whips.
I definitely have to make some orange whips. If you want to know what we're talking about, watch the movie. Yes,
yes, that's good motivation.
And yeah, well, I think if we don't stop now, we're just going to keep on rambling, and we could be doing better things like watching the Blues Brothers. So farewell. Yeah. Why would this stop? Here we go.